Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty Leadership Series interviews. I'm your host, Dov Barron, founder of Full Monty Leadership. If you are a new listener, viewer, welcome. Thank you for joining us. If you're a regular, a big thank you to you for being one of our over 1.5 million downloads and making us the number one podcast for Fortune 500 listeners, for human resources, and consistently keeping us at the top in leadership and family business podcasts. Thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Remember, we always need your help in staying relevant, so please go to iTunes, rate and review, and subscribe to the show. It helps. Thanks a lot. Hey, I'm here with one of my special guests today. My guest is Doctor. Yes, Doctor. You can trust this man, he's a doctor. Dr. John Tantillo. Now, he is one of the world's leading brand and marketing expert consultants. He's the branding editor for Fridge magazine, which I'm guessing probably doesn't have a lot to do with fridges. A contributor to Fox News opinion page, the go-to expert for the BBC, that's the BBC for those of you who don't speak British, on a range of marketing issues. John frequently appears on national media, which includes Making Money, Fox and Friends, Fox News Live, MSNBC Weekends with Alex Witt, ABC News Live. He's a former radio talk show host. He is credited with coining the term the O'Reilly factor, which later became the title of Bill O'Reilly's television show, and we might forgive him for that one. He's been particularly outspoken about what he perceives as money wasted on Super Bowl advertising. That's something we'll get into. And how Donald Trump is the greatest promoter since P.T. Barnum. John is also the author of People Buy Brands, Not Companies. So let's put our hands together and welcome Sir John, Dr. John Tantillo. Woo! Welcome, sir.
Yeah, wow. If my mother was only around to hear you give that introduction, she would have said, Dove, you shouldn't be filling my son's head with all of that nonsense. But anyway, thank you for having me on your show.
Pleasure, mate. Glad to have you here. Delighted to have you here. It's an honor. Thank you, sir. Let's start off with that piece you said before about because it's topical, it's right in the news right now. We're leading up to the election. There's only 17 more years until the next election because that's when they start preparing. Donald Trump, everybody wants to talk about the guy. So, the greatest promoter since P.T. Barnum. Tell us what you mean by that.
Well, he knows how to use the media, and he's really not a politician as much as he is an entertainer.
Yeah.
And that's where people get confused, and that's why he's doing so well in the polls, because the polls as we see them now are merely Nielsen ratings.
Right.
They are not indicators of voter behavior. And if one were to really want to consider that, you would have to go to each state and track back to those who voted in past primaries and see how they voted. But doing a phone interview, or asking someone, who are you going to vote for, doesn't a vote make. And that's the problem with all of this. So I would caution our listeners to think twice about whether or not how really strong that lead is, because it's more of a popularity contest at this point rather than an indicator of voter behavior.
Well,
and by the way, that's what doctorate is in. I'm not going to be able to get that stiff neck fixed there, Dove. I have a doctorate in applied research where we would analyze all of these different techniques. And that's why what I'm saying makes a lot of sense.
Right.
That no one is bringing up because he's great TV.
Well,
that's
what he is, right? As you said, he's an entertainer. And so, as Trevor Noah and John Oliver and all those, great late night TV news comedians say, he's fantastic for the shows. Like Trevor Noah says, I don't want him to be president, but I want him to get right up to the end because it's good fodder.
And you got to remember, Dub, there aren't many people, the guy and gal on the street really doesn't like politics. They
No.
don't want to hear about policy.
Right.
What they want to do is they want to be entertained. That's why people buy brands, not companies, resonates or makes sense, because people don't, unless you are a brand loyal Democrat or a brand loyal Republican, which in this country is about a third, and then there are probably a little bit more than a third are independents. That's where the action is. That's where the exciting part is. And that's how I believe somebody becomes a leader, when you understand who your target market is, who specifically are your customers, and what benefit do you have to that segment or to your customers. And I like to say, Dove, it's not about you, it's about your customers.
Right.
If there's anything,
so I agree with that, and I think that makes perfect sense, that it's about the customer and it's about what do you offer them and all those things. But because I think it's a great metaphor using Trump. What does Trump offer his customer other than the entertainment value? And when I say his customer, I'm not talking about the people of the Trump brand. I'm talking about, as this political, quote unquote, figure, what he's offering is entertainment. So for me, that can't last, because that's not long term, unless we're talking about his show, The Apprentice, which is now gone.
Right. And that is what I have been screaming about over the last 5 weeks, and no one wants to consider that. He's just so much fun. It's you can't really get to what can you do for me. In politics, it's not what can you do for me, it's what can you do for me lately. And one of the problems with Donald Trump is he's saying the same old stuff, as we like to, SOS, same old stuff.
Right.
So that's really that's the issue here. So what is it? Well, I mean, he does have a unique approach to things,
right?
And we would love to have him able to do that. But when you're throwing bombs at people, it becomes very difficult to get people to do things, because you know, having a drink with somebody and talking and developing a personal relationship is the way things get done.
But
I mean,
just to your point, right? People buy brands, not companies. So it appears to me, you're the expert, but it appears to me that Trump is a brand magician. I mean, he's a master of brand. I mean,
right.
For me,
yes.
This is me, my opinion, it's not the truth.
Yes.
For me, Trump is an ugly-ass brand. It's glaring, it's ugh. But, there's Trump Towers, there's Trump Hotels, there's Trump Resorts, there's Trump Water, it's all built on that personality.
Yes.
Whether I like it or not is actually not relevant, but people buy that, and that's the extension here.
But what they're buying, Dove, which you outlined perfectly, is that he's a TV personality. He's not a politician.
Right.
So because he's not a politician, I could say that so-and-so's a dumb idiot.
Right.
Or, look at so-and-so, she's ugly. Or whatever it is, and it doesn't resonate because, he's not a politician. This is just a show.
Right.
And the problem with entertainers and TV personality brands is that we get sick of them, and they have a short shelf life.
Right.
So that if you take a look at Donald Trump's Apprentice numbers, in year one of The Apprentice, he had 20 million, an audience of 20 million.
Right.
By year 6, he was down to, are you ready for this? 7 million people. That's 65% decrease.
Right.
Oh, now, and then that's why you don't see him every night, by the way, because that decrease would have accelerated. By the way, if you take a look at the number of hours, that was about 120 hours of programming. So it took about 120 hours of programming for people to
Get
tune
sick of it.
off.
Right.
So I don't know if you're familiar with this, but he's supposed to be on Saturday Night Live, an American comedy show, Trump is, this coming Saturday. If I were advising him, I would say, whatever you do, don't do that. They're going to get sick of you.
Right.
You're too overexposed. They're tuning you out. And that's what you're beginning to see.
So let's talk about this, because this has been a great metaphor for our viewers, for our listeners. Because branding, you talking about this a lot, that branding, it's not just about companies, it's about people, and it's about branding yourself as a leader, whether you're the CEO, the CFO, the leader of a department, whether you're an entrepreneur going out there on your own, solopreneur, whatever it is, you are part of that brand. So is there a danger in that of overexposure too? Is that also a possibility, or does it not work like that in that way?
No, it certainly does. And like I like to say, when you're in the company of your colleagues, I think it's always better to communicate that you're listening to them, that it's not about you, it's about them. And very, very successful people, they do something very interesting. They make you feel that after you've talked with them, that you were the most important person in the room.
Absolutely.
It wasn't about them. They made it feel about you. By the way, that's one of the positives about former President Clinton.
Yeah.
He's able to do that.
Yeah.
So he would say to you, Dove, oh, how you doing? How's the family? By the way, how's the folks in Australia doing? He would remember minute details, and you would say, that guy really, really gets it. So there are times when you have to play it cool, play it easy. That's why he was effective last night. I don't think he thinks so, but he played it kind of cool. He wasn't in people's faces, and that's what we can learn from people who are leaders, that they know when to turn it on and when to turn it off, and to always remember that whoever you're talking to listen, and it's about them. It's not about you.
I was having a discussion with a colleague of mine, also a speaker, also in the leadership environment, and we were talking about branding, and we were talking about how you're branded and what it is you put forward, and he's like right up there. Everybody knows his name in my world. And one of the things he says is that, we were all talking about, well, what is your fear in business? And one of the things he said is, I fear not being relevant. Now, he's very relevant.
Yeah.
I fear not being relevant. And I said, well, what do you do about that? He goes, I became really successful, and he had national media and all kinds of, still gets that, but had a lot of it. And he goes, and I got comfortable. I stopped promoting. I stopped doing those things. He goes, and here's why. He said, because I feared I was getting overexposed. And he goes, and I backed off for 6 months, and it went right against me. He said, I felt like I had to start all over again. So that's what I'm interested in here with you, John, is this, where is that balancing act between overexposure and making them hungry for more?
Oh, that is really, you hit the nail right on the head. I have this expression, always be branding, all right? So it's always taking the temperature and always getting the feedback and making the modifications. And with me specifically, I hate to shine the light on this, but it will illustrate the point. I wear a hat and a bow tie. Well, some people like it and some people don't. And the question is, what do you do? So what I did a little differently a few days ago is I tweeted something with a picture of me without the hat. And strange as it may seem, I got a response from a dear friend who has his own television show called Making Money, Charles Payne, who responded not to the words of the tweet, the text. He responded to my bow tie and stripes with the quote, "No one, no one puts together polka dots and stripes like you, Dr. John."
Right.
And that was the thing. 5 minutes later, I get a call from the producers, and I got on to talk about brands. That's the kind of thing that you have to kind of do, where you think, I hate to use this expression, but people use it, think differently or think outside the box, so that you're not necessarily predictable, you're perceived as being thoughtful. That is what I think you have to do.
So translate that into something for our viewer, for our listener, for somebody, how do they do that? So I'm the CFO of a company, I'm the CEO of a company, I'm an entrepreneur. I feel like I've got a brand. I think I know my central message. I maybe even have a look. How do I play with that in the way that you just said?
Okay, let's just say you normally go to the country club with a blue blazer and your tie and the button-down shirt. What about if instead, and it was, let's say, a fundraiser that your management team is going to be going to? Instead of wearing what you normally wear, what about wearing a Lacoste shirt or a different shirt, or not wearing a tie, or maybe wearing a hat?
Right.
Or, if you really want to think outside the box, maybe even wearing knickers. I mean, going really out, and that depends on who you are and what you will feel comfortable with. It took me a number of years to realize that I am an animated guy, and I'm not going to talk like this, Dove. And my name is Dr. John Tantillo, and I'm from Middle America.
Even now, as you're doing that,
yes,
and you're trying to be stiff, your head's all over the show.
Well, that's it. Well,
that's the point, right?
That's the point. That's the point.
Right.
I could have done it better years ago, but it's just now so part of my DNA, Dove.
I'm the same. I can't actually do. It's very difficult for me to, because I've had coaches on this, and it's like, no, I can't do the talking head thing. It's just not who I am. I'm an animated guy.
Right. I mean, and I have a saying. It may be a little trite to say it, but to thy own brand be true.
Right.
I mean, you can't be something that you're not. And you take a look at a great brand in terms of social media, the wine guy, Bovacek, or whatever the heck his name is.
Gary Vaynerchuk.
Gary. I mean, he's all over the place. I mean, seldom right, never in doubt. And I mean, I know a little something about wine, and when I hear him, my eyes go round and round. But he's excellent at what he does.
He's a master.
And you can't.
Yeah. Gary's a master.
And what the heck do I know? In the same way, what the heck does person X know about me, this Italian guy from New York City that wears hats and bow ties and gets through the clutter? Because it's difficult out there to make an impression, or for people to create what they call in marketing and in branding a position. Yeah. So when you see Tantillo, what comes to mind? Oh, he's the guy who's entertaining, and the guy with the hat entertaining, and teaches me something, whatever it is he's
Mm-hmm.
talking about. I never looked at things. When I talk to a Dove, he's a leadership guy. All right, and teaches me about leadership, and he's the master of that. Those are the kinds of things that you really want to be able, as an executive, and as a leader, for people in one or two words to come out and identify with a benefit.
Right.
Once again, it's not about you. If I just wear a hat and I wear a bow tie and I'm irrelevant, what? I mean, this is all then about me. It's not about. But when they say, that guy with the hat, he's funny, and gee, I learned something from him, and I picked that up when I used to teach. Are you ready for this? I used to teach business statistics to adolescents in college. And I mean, these guys and gals. I mean, I would use lines like one man's sample is another man's population. You can't say man now. You have to change it to person. But I mean, those are the kind. I had them roaring in the chairs.
Right.
And I would say, here's a typical saying: when in doubt, take the mean. So those are the kinds of things that you would say. Well, from doing that and then sprinkling it also with real content, the lacrosse team would say, hey, with Tantillo, you laugh and learn. I would have to spin it to say learn and laugh. But the point is, what the verbatim from those students was with Tantillo, you laugh and learn. And this is a true story. I'm at a cocktail party 20 years later, and teaching statistics at Hofstra University in the Northeast on Long Island in New York. And I used to get them to talk about in statistics the error in every poll, which is basically called the standard error of measurement, okay? So I'm at this cocktail party, and I'm having a great time, and this former student comes up to me and says, Dr. Tantillo, I just want to say, I'll never forget your explanation of what the standard error of measurement was. And he used that. He didn't say error. He said the standard error of measurement, in which so that when I see every poll, I think of you, because I realize that a poll can go 3 or 4 points. That's so that if a person has a poll is 30, it means that his true score or his true poll numbers can be 27 to 33.
Right.
Now, for me, I get goosebumps. I still get goosebumps and excited about that, because that's what I like to do. I like to teach, and I like to do it in an entertaining way. And whatever way you can do that, and that's what we have to do as leaders: figure out what it is that we do. And I guess if we're a leader, we have to be different types of problem solvers. Maybe that is okay. So we do it in a creative way. We may do it in a consensus-oriented way, or as some of the great leaders, professionals would say, it's a great things that you can accomplish when you when you don't care who gets credit for what you've done.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that's really, really good. So if you put
But even then, those are different kinds of brands of leaders. I mean, there is the quiet, humble brand of leader.
Yes.
There is the charismatic leader, like Clinton.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There is the personality leader, like Reagan or Kennedy. And the personality leader is often an opinionated leader, meaning they just have an opinion, and they don't actually, because of that personality so big, a lot of the time they don't even have to back it up with facts. It's just like, because this is just my opinion. Right. Wrong or right, it's my opinion, and that's also a brand. So all these ways of doing it. So what I'm trying to do is, excuse me. What I'm trying to do is help our viewer, help our listener, how to refine a little bit about how they can put their brand. Because the the market of being working. Let's just take it outside of entrepreneurship for a minute. The market of being a C-suite individual. When you and I entered the workforce, and now many of our compatriots who are also in the workforce at our age, when we entered the workforce, we were asked what did we want to do. It was a 20 to 40 year career question. Now it's a 4-year question. And even top executives who are CEOs and CFOs and CMOs and all those kinds of things, who are in their 40s, 50s, and even late 50s, early 60s, understand that those positions are about 5 years now. And when they come out of there, at the top end 5 years, when they come out of that, I got to brand myself again. I got to get out. I got to get my brand out there again. So what I want to do is I want to suck out of your brain some of the diamonds and go, okay, let's give them this. You're transitioning out. You've been the CEO of this global company or of this national company or this local company. You've been the CEO. You're about to go out into the world, and you want to really show your value and have them inbound marketing you, have them coming to you.
Right.
How do we help them go, okay, what are step 1, step 2, step 3 that they can do to go, this is why you got to have me?
Okay. Number 1, you ask your family. You get feedback from your family. You basically do a focus group. Okay, and it doesn't have to be a group. It could be one-on-one. Right. So first of all, you go to your family, and you get feedback. So, honey, and by the way, I've done this. When I was doing the, I was what do they call it in some religions? The deep dark search of the soul. Yeah. What the heck am I doing right, or what the heck am I doing wrong? So you ask that significant other, what's my strength? What's my weakness? Where can I in fact get better? So you look at this in concentric circles. So you look at family members, then you go to friends.
Right.
Okay. And you do the same thing. You're catching data, you're branding. You'll always be branding. You're always collecting information. No matter what your age, you're getting better. And then the third, which is after the friends, which is the hardest because you're vulnerable when you do this, and you should do it very carefully. And if you're a leader, you do understand this, is go to colleagues and find out what it is. And then the fourth is to observe. You have to observe what are successful leaders doing. You take a look at the Republican group. This fellow Marco Rubio. He's 44 years old, and he's talking about the future. Okay, he's talking about positive things. He's not saying, well, in the good old days when Ronald Reagan was president. He's talking about the future and how we got to do things now, and what's got to happen now,
right?
And providing a so this is what we constantly have to do. Always be branding. So, ask number 1 our family members. Secondly, our friends, and thirdly, our colleagues, and then always be observing. Are those actionables? Is that good?
So, go ahead. But what we're asking them is, what do they see as our strengths?
Yes.
Yes. What do they see as our weaknesses? Okay.
Right.
I'm going to play the other side for a minute. So I'm that guy. I'm the CFO or whatever it is of that company, and I go, okay, this is great info, John, but what the hell does my family know about my strengths when it comes to being a CFO? They don't know anything about it. Most of them can't even balance their checkbook.
That's your weakness right there, because you know everything, and you think that because we're family, I don't have any positive things to say. So maybe what that translates into is that you have certain biases, so that you shouldn't. So that's what you have to work on. Yeah. You see, everything, and this is a psychologist in me.
Yep.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
Sorry, as long as you don't tell them about me, I'll be all right.
Okay, all right. So this is what we have to do, and it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be. You might have to go around this a few times, right. And it might be only after you talk to your friends that the the conversation that you had with your family members begins to make a little sense.
But bringing this back for a minute, because I want to talk about context here, because there's the context of relevance, and the context of relevance is that there is some information you should that you should freaking ignore.
Right.
and so
right.
And that's what I'm saying about listening.
You have to be a good editor.
Yeah,
you gotta be a good editor.
So that's what I'm saying about the family member coming back who can't balance their checkbook, trying to give you advice about where you're strong as a CFO seems like non-relevant information.
Right.
That's why I put that forward to you. So how do you?
Okay, it just reminds you. Okay, I'll give you an example. I come from a very Catholic background. I have a lot of priest friends. I have a lot of people that have been in religious life. And when I go or I have a media appearance, they think I'm full of myself. Mm-hmm. They think, now you have to understand, I've been told by people that are media personalities that I am the nicest person. I'm blowing tooting my own horn here, but I'm one of the nicest people they've ever met in television, right? And they think I'm full of myself. So mm-hmm. That's and my mother, and I that's why I brought my mother into it. She thought I was a ham, and she thought I was just such a, what I'm doing promoting myself is a craziness.
Right.
You just can't do that. What does that mean? It means that I hopefully, and this is an empirical question, that kind of ceiling will not, I really won't become a class
A-hole.
Person, yes. Okay, thank you. Because I hear that from my family members, and so that's what I'm basically saying. That you have to edit it, because if I were to listen to only my family members, I wouldn't be doing this at all. And I'll tell you this: the reason that this only happened in the last 10 years was because I was listening to them.
Right.
That I didn't want to be the center of attention, and because that's not the way you do it.
Right. So this is for me, because I'm putting myself in the ears and the eyes of our listeners, of our viewers, and saying, okay, so this is the confusion for me, because I hear this when I work with my clients. I hear this is like, I'm supposed to get this feedback, but half the people who've got the feedback don't get it. Like, right. So your family doesn't get that you need a personality to be on stage, to be on TV. Right. The person who can't balance their book, their checkbook is trying to tell me how to handle my finances. My uncle over here is telling me I'm crap at relationships, needs divorced for 18 times, and can't keep a relationship more than 10 minutes. He can't even have a relationship with chewing gum. So, I think there's a good point in asking for feedback and creating your focus groups, but I think we also have to be very disciplined about making sure we're not asking sycophants, so people who will just blow smoke up our ass and tell us what we need to hear, but also, at the other hand, that we're asking people who actually have a context of relevance, who understand what I'm talking about. If I go if I say, okay, listen, I do a lot of TV and I want to be better on TV, and I go, okay, John, how much TV do you do? And you do as much as I do, or do more, or you have some of the places that I want to go. I go, okay, give me guidance, because you're already in there. I'm not going to go down to the street corner and ask the person who maybe appeared on local TV once.
Yeah. Well, to respond to that, when I was a kid, I grew up in a working class neighborhood, and when somebody would rank on you or criticize you, you would say, consider the sauce. And I guess not the gravy, the sauce. No,
I get it.
Anyway. So the point I'm making here, consider the sauce.
Right.
But you need to hear it.
Right.
You need to hear it, and then you're the bright one. You know yourself better than anybody else, except if you were John Tantillo 20 years ago, where I was in search of. Now I really get me. I understand me. And, yeah, I'll give you another example. I go into this meeting the other day. It was a networking meeting, and the person makes a presentation. And the presentation was a little flat. And I let them know in my not bombastic way, which I could be when I'm around an idiot, but in my teacher kind of way. And they were angry at me for doing that. And I felt the person that I mentioned it to. So after the meeting, I spoke to people that were in the meeting who told me, you did that just perfectly. That you were right on. And I didn't want to chime in because I didn't want to seem or appear that I was piling on. The point I'm making was that I felt badly initially, but I really helped the person.
Right.
And now, as a result, people are asking me, when I went to the last meeting, which was 2 days ago, they're asking me what I thought.
Right.
So something now has changed. And that's what leaders have to be able to do. There's another comment, and I know you'll get a kick out of this. The higher you go up the tree, the more your behind shows. So that so that's what you got to be able to take. And I'm a big boy, and that's what I do. So I hope that answered the questions. I hope I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
As a famous mayor in New York City, Ed Koch used to say, "How am I doing?"
So, what do you think is the number one mistake people make regarding a personal brand?
Trying to emulate or trying to be something that they're not. Probably the best. Okay, wearing a young guy seeing this show, a leader in training, decides that he's going to wear a hat and a bow tie. And he's like 20 years old or 25 years old, and he's starting his business. And maybe that will work with one segment. It might not work with another segment. So I would say what has to happen is you have to be yourself. And I have, I think that what you want to be is you want to be you. You don't want to be some reincarnation of someone else.
Right.
And you could take different characteristics and make it this brand.
Right.
And I think that would be, I would say. You have to be a brand original.
Right.
That's the secret.
So here's what I would say, and I want your feedback. You're the expert. I would give advice around relevance and contrast. Okay. So, is what I'm saying relevant to the audience, to the potential customer that I want, and am I contrasted enough to stand out? So, yes. As an example, and I'll use me as an example because you've been using you, so I'll use me as an example. I speak to leaders, CFOs, CEOs, high-level entrepreneurs, people who are in a whole different world than most other people. Most of those guys are in uniform. They're in the blue suit, white shirt, red tie. Right. I show up. I've got my earrings on. I've worn them since I was 16. I don't take them out. It's just part of who I am. It's become a brand, but it was never aimed as a brand. It's just me.
Right.
I don't wear a tie.
Right.
What I say is relevant to them. Controversial, yes, but relevant to them, so they get the pain of what I'm talking about. And I'm in contrast to them in that I don't look like them, and I can relate to another part of them, which is the younger people they're serving. Right. So there's the relevance and the contrast. Tell me what you think about that as guidance for people.
Well, the contrast is perfect, because if you would wear a tie and you would not have the earrings and you said the things that you say, or talk about the full Monty and where you promote yourselves, there would be a disconnect.
Right.
In other words, this is in fact very consistent with your brand.
Right.
That you because you wear the earrings, you can get away with saying things, and the fact that you don't have a tie, that they will consider, because people with ties and white shirts and blue suits don't say those things.
Right.
So that's the strength of your as your brand.
So, because now, like I said, I'm back in the shoes of that person, and because I think that so often we're regulated by this. Oh my God, they won't like me. Oh my God, I'll be too much. I'll be too outrageous. It'll be too,
Right.
So I do have. I mean, here's a good one. I started speaking. My first speaking gig was 1984. So I've been doing this for a couple of years now. 1984, and I got this speaking gig completely by accident. I was hanging out with somebody. I was doing some business with somebody on another thing altogether. And the guy said, "Will you come speak for me?" And I said, like, I've never spoken. He goes, "Yeah, I want you to speak to my executives." And he had a national menswear company in Australia. And I said, "Well, what's going on?" He goes, we're having a corporate meeting in the boardroom. Here's the address. It's local. It's in Perth, Western Australia, which is where I was living. And I said, "Okay." He said, "But one condition." And I said, "What?" He said, "I want you to come looking like this," which is how I was dressed that day. And I said, "These are executives. Are you sure?" And he goes, "Yeah." Now, I bought lots of things at his store. I actually liked, because it was high-end, nice clothes. But this particular day, I was in ripped jeans with the, back when it was done the first time. Now it's back in fashion.
Right.
Ripped jeans. I had what would today be called a wife beater on. I'm a bodybuilder. I have been for many, many years, so I'm all muscly. And in those days, my hair is like down past my chest, and my hair's like Howard Stern's used to be. So it's the ringlet curls, and I've got big ass earrings in. And I go, "Are you sure you want me to show up like this?" And he goes, "Yep." I show up at that meeting, and he said, "I want you to come. I'm going to come at this time." He said, "I'll be speaking. Stand at the doorway. Make sure they can see you, but not inside. So you need to catch their eye." Okay, he's a very smart guy. Okay, so I stand there, and I wait. And then he introduces me, and people, you can see his guys going, there's a mistake here. And I go up, and my first question to them is, I don't tell him anything about who I am. He's already told them that. My first question to them is, "How many of you here are biased?" Of course, nobody puts up their hand. I go, "You're a bunch of freaking liars. You're all biased." How do I know? Because I saw the looks you gave when you saw me in the doorway, and you figured who I am, what my value is, and whether I have anything of value to say to you. You've already made that up, and that's your mistake, because what you don't know is I'm one of your customers. And you've just turned your back on one of your customers.
I love it.
Blew their freaking mind. Steve was my friend it was his company. He was over the moon with that statement. He thought it was fantastic. He goes, "You nailed them. It was perfect. You brought attention back to our customer doesn't look like the picture in their head, that they're a wide range." Now, here's the thing. That was my endeavor into the speaking world. Then I bought into the non-relevant crap from other people, which is why I was talking about it before. And guess what I did? Back in those days, I had that designer stubble, the George Michael stubble with that hair and all the rest of it. Here's what I did. About 6 months later, when I really decided to take it on, I went and cut off all my hair, had this salesman mustache, and there's pictures of me where I look older then than I do today, 30 years later.
Yeah.
Because I bought the idea that this is what the speaker looks like. I had a blue suit, white shirt, red tie, the boring haircut, and a mustache, and I didn't look like me, and I wasn't me. I was inauthentic. And it was a great example of, here's what you're supposed to do, but if you do it, you lose you. And my greatest impact was when I was in contrast.
Right. Well, I mean, this is really hard to do, and if I mentioned this earlier, I'm sorry, on the tweet that I sent that got me all the
attention,
the attention there from Charles Payne, and I'll never forget it, and it's worth repeating. It's 1/3 of the people are going to like you, 1/3 are going to hate you, and 1/3 aren't going to give a darn one way or the other. And if you can live with that, then you'll just be fine. That you're not going to be loved by everyone, and that I'm not saying that you intentionally go and get
Piss people
angry
off?
at you. All right, I was going to say that, but I didn't want to. But this when I go in the airport, okay, the bias on this look is generally older people.
Right.
Older people don't like it. So anybody north of 50 doesn't. Anyone below 50 stops me in the airport. Men and women, you look beautiful. You look great. Could you take a picture? I got guys in their 20s. Will you take a picture with my girlfriend? I had a 16-year-old kid. You're cool, man. So they get it.
Right.
It's the producers of Fox that I have problems sometimes with. Does this mean that I'm not credible?
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm too much fun and not serious enough? But it's just so much stronger seeing this than a balding white guy.
Right.
Doing. Older guy that's doing the same. They're not going to listen. This makes me ageless. There might be other issues, but you can't worry about that. So what you're doing and what I'm doing, I can most definitely relate. And don't be afraid.
But I think you've just said it, which I think is important, and I really want people to hear what you were saying here. I think what's important is that if you're going to own a brand, really own a brand, then you've got to be willing, and I'm going to take it further, you've got to be willing to piss people off. You've got to be willing to have some people dislike you. It's that simple. And if you're not willing to do that, if you can't live with some people not liking you, then you'll never have a brand. As my friend Larry Winger, who you probably know is a...
Sure. Right? Oh, wonderful man. Yes.
As Larry says, if I don't get at least one death threat a week, my brand is weak. Because that's Larry's brand. Larry's brand is he's in your face, and you don't have to agree with him. You're an idiot, and I can prove it. It's one of the titles of one of his books. And that is it. He's, and he's him and I have had conversations about it. He says, you got to be willing to piss people off because what I say to the leaders I work with, and it's not necessarily related to brand, but it definitely relates to brand. And that is this: your job is not to have people like you. Your job is to get people off the freaking fence. You cannot lead from the fence.
I love it. You're right on. You're getting me excited here. This is terrific. This is really great. Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. And where were you last week when I was a little depressed? And that's the other thing. There's always going to be times when you're going to think twice about what you're doing. And then you got to go on your show, Dove, and have a great conversation like we're having now.
I think what you've got to do, which is what you were saying earlier, I think you've got to take a general consensus from people who are relevant and understand what you're talking about. If you're depressed about, whatever's going on, and then you go talk to your family who don't understand shit about what it is you do, you're going to come out more depressed.
Wow, yes. Yes.
So there's the relevance of the conversation as well.
Yes.
So who am I going to go talk to? I'm going to talk to somebody who actually gets this.
No. I agree with you 1,000%. What I was trying to say is you want to get as much data as you can.
Absolutely. And I agree with that.
And that's one group. They probably know you the best and know you the least. If they know you from an internal point of view who you are, but they may not know about you professionally, and that's the dance that we have to
I think that's a very good point. One of the sayings that I bring up a lot in my presentations about leadership is this, and it's a very old saying, and that is, a wise man is a fool in his own village.
Oh, yes.
And I extend that, and I say, a wise man is a fool in his own village, a freaking idiot in his own family.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So what that means is they don't get that part of you, so don't bother bringing it up. There's a waste of time.
One of the things I want to do, I have another book that I want to write, but that's a whole different situation. But the book, the title I have already, you're going to get a kick out of this. My mother said no to piano lessons. I think I'm the only 5-year-old child that said to their mother, Mom, I want to take piano lessons. And she said no. the best part is she had a piano that was given to the family by the tenant who was leaving, and she actually had to pay to get the piano out of the house. And her 5-year-old son, who I knew at 5 years old I wanted to be a performer, she said no to it. So in terms of the relatives, I get it. I get it.
Show us your book, John, please. Hold that up first so we can see the book.
Sure. Here you go. It's People Buy Brands, Not Companies. You can get it at Amazon, and you can even Kindle it.
Okay, wonderful. It's been great having you on the show. Tell our listeners, tell our viewers where they can find out more about you, about hiring you, bringing you in to work with them, to speak on their stage, to hire you as a consultant to help them develop their brand. Reach out. Tell us how to do it.
Okay, it's very easy. doc@johntantillo.com is my email address, and in terms of my website, it's marketingdoctor.tv. That's marketingdoctor.tv.
Marketingdoctor.tv. Now, as usual, folks, we'll make sure that URL is posted on the site so that you can see it and find out about it. If for some reason you're catching this through iTunes and you didn't catch that, you can write to me. I'm going to give you all the information for that too, and I will make sure that you get a hold of Dr. John. He, as he said, he's given you his email. Give that email again if you wouldn't mind, please, John.
Oh, sure. doc@johntantillo.com.
Fabulous. And so reach out to us. Like I said, I want to thank you for joining us here on the show. And if you're truly serious about embracing the kind of positive disruption that builds a culture of fiercely loyal employees who not only lead but also become evangelical about your organization while generating 10x engagement and productivity, reach out to me. My name is Dov Barron at FullMontyLeadership.com. Full Monty like the movie, leadership.com. My name is Dov Barron, D-O-V Baron. Again, thank you for joining us on this episode. Until next time, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious.